So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. Hope you all can hear me well. I know sometimes the sound goes in and out. Forgive me for that. I don't know why. But I want to talk about some things that are on my mind. Forgive me, I'm getting a silent because the people above me, their son and them make a lot of noise over top of my head. But anyway, I'm going to try to talk through it. A couple of things I want to talk about. I may be all over the place, but that's what I do. I'm the occult view. There was a shooting here in DC today. Two National Guards were unalived, unfortunately and tragically. And to me, that is very, very disturbing. I have never heard of anyone going after military personnel, let alone the National Guard, because the National Guard, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, they are the least aggressive fraction of the military. I mean, it's not like they're the Marines. They are not the aggressive fraction of the military. I mean, they keep law and order, and they're trained to deal with certain situations. But for them to be, I'm going to say, assassinated, the two that were, that's crazy. And then you have the director of the FBI, Cash Patel, running around like a chicken with his head chopped off. And I really do hope that the rumors I'm hearing are true, that President Trump is considering firing him. He needs to also fire Pam Bondi as well. Because what's going to happen, and I want some of you MAGA people to listen to me, what's going to happen when the Democrats get the House back, they are going to impeach the president. When he gets out of office, that's if he's, I guess, in good health, I don't know. They're going to go after him. And when you have stupid people, see, it's not the president, it's the stupid people around him. Let me name their names: Brooke Rollins, Pete Hegseth, Cash Patel, Pam Bondi. And those are just a few. When you have stupid, reckless people around you that are heads of major governmental institutions like the Department of Justice, like the FBI, which I believe the FBI is under the Department of Justice. It is. You saw they had to, that federal case that they had against Letitia James and James Comey, the federal judge dismissed those charges because the prosecutor was not qualified. She was not qualified to prosecute them. So that is why I say he has stupid, reckless people around him. And it is causing innocent people to lose their lives. Even with Charlie Kirk, even with his assassination. Let's be honest. All of this shit is kind of intertwined. I'm not going to say it's connected. Then again, it sounds like it is, but it's intertwined. Two National Guards unalived down there near the White House. I believe on the H Street corridor of the White House, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't on the Pennsylvania Avenue side. Two National Guards and other people, from what I'm hearing, there were other casualties as well. I'm not sure about the other casualties, but I do think fleetingly, I saw a report that there were other casualties as well. You have people shooting at our military people, the ones that, protect us and keep order because of your vile, disgusting laws. And it makes me wonder, hmm, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser announced today that she would not seek re-election. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Happy days are here again. And the reason I don't like her is because she really did not, she really lacked accountability for a lot of the chaos, meaning the crime that was going on in DC under her tenure. But see, when the Trump administration took over the presidency and they started questioning her, she was humbled. But when the press would ask her questions, she was very nasty and nonchalant with them. So it was kind of pleasurable to see her humbled by that Senate committee that was questioning her about DC and all of the crime that's been going on in DC. Yeah, I got a kick out of that. But here's what I really wanted to talk about. We live in a country that wants us to believe that black men have it so bad when they go into prison and when they get out and all of this other stuff, right? Oh, we can't find work. We can't do this. We can't do that. That's bullshit. And let me tell you why it's bullshit. And it really makes me look at the system in general. I'm not, and let me say this as a disclaimer. I'm not talking about being anti-government and all that type of conspiracy thing. No, no, no. I'm just looking at what I know and the things I have seen and witnessed for myself. What I have seen and witnessed for myself, let me just tell you, let me give you an example. Let me give you a prime example, and this is recent. I know someone, and I guess you can say he's a very distant relative because I'm not related to him by blood, but I'm related to him by marriage. Let's just say that. He's a cousin by marriage. But he's related to people that I am related to by blood. Okay? But he's a cousin by marriage. This individual, and we're going to call him Gregory. Gregory went to jail in the very early 90s when he was probably maybe 17 years old, maybe 17, 18, or 19. But no, he was about 18 or 19 years old. He's in his late 40s now. He's a few years older than me. He went to jail in the early 90s here in DC for committing a very heinous crime. The crime that he committed, he was in that street life. He unalived a man. which in that street life, it happens. But the part that disturbs me the most is the fact that not only did he unalive this man, he also unalived this man's girlfriend. Now, this was in the early 90s when they were doing stuff like this. And the girlfriend was pregnant. Did you hear me? The girlfriend was pregnant. And the baby died as well. He went to jail for over 30 years. Me personally, I don't think he should have ever got out for committing a crime like that. That's just me. This man has not even been out of jail a good year, practically. I'm going to say a good year, maybe just a year. He already has his own place. He's making money, was able to start some type of business, and it just makes you wonder, well, damn, it's black men out here who ain't never killed nobody, who ain't never been to jail, who don't have a record, and they not even balling like that. So it makes you take a look at the system that we live in and how they facilitate. Because the only reason, let's be clear, let's be honest, the only reason that he was able to get these things is because they set these type of people up, murderers and psychopaths and people that commit heinous crimes. Let's be honest, they go through some type of rehabilitation in jail. They agree to some form of, what do they call it, rehabilitation. There's another word for it though. Behavioral modification therapy, to reintroduce them into society, no matter how heinous the crime was. They have people and support systems that back them up. That is why a lot of times they are able to get ahead of everyone else because they have governmental entities backing them up. I think that a lot of these men on YouTube, some of these black men, I'm not going to say a lot, but some of these black men on YouTube that have been to prison, that they are part of this behavioral modification effect where they make an agreement with the prisoner and say, hey, listen, and they showed you this, and I've talked about this before. They showed you this in Tales from the Dark Side. I'm sorry, was that Tales from the Dark Side? Yeah, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. No, I'm sorry, Tales from the Hood, the movie, the black version. You know the part where the dude turned into the devil at the end and all that? Go look at that movie. The segment about Crazy K. Remember Crazy K went to jail? And the lady Rosalind Cash, the actress Rosalind Cash, love her, miss her so much. Rest in power, sister. Remember, her character was like the head of some behavioral modification program that she wanted to put him in order to study him. And if he agreed to it, what's that noise? If he agreed to it, he would be released. And see, that's another form of art imitating life and life imitating art. They have those programs in prison. And Crazy K was practically, I'm going to say he was a serial killer because he murdered so many black people unjustly. And remember, this came out in the 90s. And the 90s was a very interesting time. And a lot of this was going on. So a lot of those dudes back in the 90s who went to prison and then they got out and they were able to rebuild their life all of a sudden. And people are wondering, well, damn, how was he able to do that? He had help. He probably was in one of those behavioral modification programs. This, relative by marriage of mine, he should have never gotten out of prison, in my opinion. And I give him the side eye. I don't like him. Sorry, but I don't. Him murdering the dude, that's one thing. That's street related stuff. But him murdering a mother and her unborn child, that's a whole nother type of evil. That's a whole nother type of evil. And I know people are saying, well, he was 19 when he did that. That takes a very evil consciousness to know that a woman is pregnant and to kill her and ultimately causing the death of her unborn child. And I just think that there is no real way you can rehabilitate that. I'm sorry, that's just me. That's just like, let me tell y'all a story. About 15 years ago, when I was really hot and horny all the time, I was constantly on Craigslist, always looking for a hot hookup, you know? Because back then, you could get on Craigslist until they started doing all that sex trafficking and stuff and, involving kids and all that old weird, disgusting bullshit. And then that's why they shut Craigslist down. There was a guy, and he used to hit me up all the time. And he was good looking. He was good looking, but he was kind of weird. But then I said, he's an Aquarius, so I expect them to be a little quirky and a little weird. The first time I met him, he said he didn't feel comfortable. He said something about my butt wasn't fat enough. I said, okay. Then he said I was acting aggressive. I said, how was I acting aggressive? But then he wanted to meet with me again. So me, I'm 30, 31, I'm horny. I said, okay, let's try again. Me now, hell no, it wouldn't have happened. But I was young back then. And he was very aggressive in the bedroom. Very much aggressive. And it was just a sex thing. I stopped fooling with him because he would see me post on Craigslist even when I did not have a picture. He would know it was me because he was studying my words. And I was like, oh, this motherfucker's a stalker. I said, I gave you some booty one time and you see you and you going crazy like that? So that was one red flag. But to make a long story short, in 2016, the last time I saw him was in 2012. And after that, I refused to meet him again because I didn't like his energy. Between that time, he must have gotten married and he had a baby. This motherfucker, this evil motherfucker. Well, first off, let me tell you what I found, how I found out about this. Now this was in 2016 when I was already going through my shit after my friend Christopher Berry died. So this dude, this dude, somebody, well, no, somebody had asked me. I'm trying to remember. Somebody had asked me. I remember now. Someone asked me, "Did you hear about that guy that murdered his own baby and him and the wife they hid it? They tried to cover it up." They were talking about that guy. That they were talking about him. I didn't know anything about it. And when the person told me about it, I didn't know it was him at that time until I went and I researched it. I said, let me look it up because it was in the I was living over in Hyattsville, Maryland at the time. It was in that area. So when I looked it up and I saw it was him, I was sick to my stomach. I was sick to my stomach. And then the wife, she helped him cover it up. But I think she ended up turning state's evidence. Well, I don't know if it's state's evidence, but she ended up cooperating with the authorities. And I think they let her off. They let her out. This is graphic, what I'm getting ready to say. It was a newborn baby boy. He punched him in his stomach because the little baby wouldn't stop crying. Babies don't cry just to cry. It was probably something wrong with him. I remember one time I was watching my nephew. He was a baby. He was probably about, what, 5 months. Back in the early 2000s when I was in my early 20s. And he kept crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. And I didn't know what was wrong with him. I was 20, 21, and I was losing my patience, you know. But it never occurred to me to punch my nephew in the stomach. He was a baby. Come to find out, the reason he was crying, I called my aunt. And she said, she said, have you tried feeding him? I said, yeah, but every time I put the bottle in his mouth, he doesn't want it. So we figured out what it was. My brother's baby mama, who dropped him off on me to watch him, she forgot to bring the cereal that goes into the formula. So when he was drinking that formula, there was no cereal in it. I said, "Oh my God!" So luckily, we figured out what was wrong. So now my nephew at the time was only 5 months. So luckily, at that time, I used to order carryout a lot. Right at that time, I was ordering some carryout. I'll never forget it. I ordered me a chicken patty sandwich and some French. No, I ordered me a chicken patty sub and some French fries. He was just a crying and crying. So when I went downstairs to get it, after the carryout person came, I went downstairs to get it. He kind of stopped crying. So when I pulled up, so I'm thinking I'm gonna be able to eat my food. When I pulled out my French fries, had ketchup. Oh, it was good. Had ketchup and everything on it. That little that little sucker, he took his entire hand, went down in the French fries, and rammed about two of them in his mouth. He was 5 months old. I said, and he ate my chicken patty sandwich too. But after that, he was okay. The point that I'm making is babies don't cry just to cry. He was hungry. And I I mean, I know he was only 5 months, but he was able to eat it. He was able to eat it. French fries with ketchup on it. And I didn't want to. What was I going to tell him to stop? What was I going to tell him to stop? What was I going to hit him and say, "Don't you touch none"? You don't do that. I just backed up and let him eat. Then he wanted some of my chicken patty sub too. I said, okay. But after that, he was playing on the bed. He was happy. He threw up and then he went to sleep. But going back to this person, he punched his son in the stomach so hard that it caused him to hemorrhage. The son was probably 3 to 5 months like my nephew was. And it just touched me a different way. They only gave, the point that I'm making is they only gave that motherfucker 40 years in prison. And now he's trying. I've been keeping tabs on him because I want to know, excuse me, if they ever let him out. He's trying to get his sentence reduced. And I remember years before he had his son, but his son was born in 2016. Back in 2010, when he was on Facebook, he would make the most disturbing Facebook post about women. And I found this out after he went to prison for murdering his baby. He would say things like, why do women, and ladies, please don't take offense to this. This is not coming from me. This is not how I feel. This is what this man was saying. And it goes to show you how a lot of these men masquerade as being straight, but they're really on the DL. Because of course he had to be on the DL if he was messing with me. He was posting on Facebook how women had smelly vaginas and what makes you think somebody wants your smelly hole when and nothing but blood comes. This is what he was saying on Facebook. So that let me know he was probably abusive towards his wife. He wasn't married to her when he and I were messing with each other. He wasn't married then. But these were the things he was saying, talking about women's vaginas and talking about how nasty they were and saying horrible things about women. But what I have been noticing when I read up about the motions, he this oh wait a minute. But he claims to love Jesus so much. He's a Christian. He's into God and all of these other things. This is what he said. From reading his record and the current activity of what's going on with him, he's trying to get he is submitting motions to try to get released from prison. So that lets me know he has no remorse for what he did to his baby son, who would have been about 9 years old right about now, 9 or 10 almost, probably about almost 10. This motherfucker is trying to get out of prison after what he did. They only gave him 40 years, which I think is too good. He purposely murdered his son vindictively because the baby wouldn't stop crying. That was according to the court transcripts. And the fact that they're even letting him submit motions to try to get out of prison, so I won't be surprised because he's been locked up now for uh, about 8 years now because they locked him up in 2017 for the crime because they buried the baby's body and tried to conceal it and cover it up. So he's been in prison for about 8 years now. And I would not be surprised that I won't be surprised if they put him in some type of behavioral modification program within the prison system and tell him you have to go through this program if you want to be released immediately. They're going to set him up with a job. They're going to set him up with a way to make money. And it really, really makes me wonder about a lot of these dudes in social media who claim to have all of this and all of that. Are they from the prison system? Are they part of the behavioral modification effect within the prison system? And then they put these psychotic, dangerous people back on the street. We're worried of y'all talking about some non-existent bullshit with ICE and Hispanic people. I don't have no issues with Hispanic people. It's these niggas that I'm afraid of. Yeah, I said it. And I don't give a fuck who it offends. This ain't racial. This is cultural. And why is it that we can't say anything? Why can't we say that? Why is that wrong to say? That they are letting bad people out of prison who should not be let out. This guy killed his own son, and they only gave him 40 years in prison? To me, that should be either the death penalty or life. But I don't think that here in Maryland, they don't have the death penalty, and I don't think DC has the death penalty either. Let me see. I know DC doesn't have it. I don't think Maryland has it either. Let me see. Let me see. I'm gonna ask. Does Maryland have the death penalty?
No. Maryland abolished the death penalty in 2013. The sentences of those on death row were changed to life in prison without the possibility.
So no, Maryland does not have the death penalty, and they just only abolished it in 2013. Well, no wonder there's so much crime in Maryland now. No wonder. They need to bring the death penalty back. They do. They need to reinstate the death penalty, especially if you kill a child, a baby. And now these very same people, and I'm going to say in theory, theoretically, these very same types of people, these psychopaths, they're now killing and assassinating people who are just doing their job like the military. And it's all connected to governmental entities. So what are we, what are we doing? You motherfuckers are so worried about people and what they spend with SNAP benefits. You are so worried about somebody, see, this is the shit that you all need to be worried about because they're going to start letting people out like this guy that I used to mess with who murdered his own baby son. They're going to start letting people like this out. They let my cousin by marriage, they let him out. They let him out. I won't be surprised in the next 9 years or so if they let this guy out who murdered his son that I was just telling you about. But you all are worried about people buying ice cream and cookies and cakes and candy and steak and lobster with their SNAP benefits. You're worried about that, But you're not worried about your tax dollars going to these behavioral modification programs that are letting these violent criminals out and then setting them up with your tax dollars where they can actually do better than you. But you're not worried about that. Oh, that's right. You don't know about that. You think they just get out of jail and they're just doing good. No, they have some assistance with that. There's something backing them up with that. That is how a lot of those men, especially the black ones, and others too, but I'm talking about the black ones because I don't really know. I don't really deal with no others like that. Especially the black ones, they're able to get out, secure loans, start their own businesses. And you think they're just doing that because of their intelligence? No, they have some help. They have some help with that. But you all are worried about gay people. You're worried about SNAP benefits, but you're not worried about this. You're not worried about your tax dollars being funded for shit like this to bring these violent, psychotic criminals into civilization when they're not civilized. Yes, I said it. But nobody wants to talk this type of realism because they want us under a certain type of spell work where we are disempowered and we don't ask questions. Because, like I said, I was like, well, damn, the dude that I'm related to by marriage, not blood, I said, damn, how the fuck he get out of prison and all of a sudden he got his own business? What the fuck is he doing? And you know, it's always the same theme and pattern. It's always the worst of the worst. Like a lot of these rappers. They pick the worst of the worst. They pick the worst of the worst. No, they ain't work no motherfucking hard. Them niggas are up under an effect. They're up under somebody else's effect. It ain't because they sold this and that. Nah, nah. How the fuck you been in jail for 30 years and you doing better than somebody who's been out here hustling and grinding most of their life? You just get out of jail and you already doing better than somebody else. There's no jealousy, it's observation. Tax dollars go to those programs to help those prisoners. And like I said, they pick the worst of the worst because that is what they like to facilitate. They can make money off of them. And they can also use these types of people to do a lot of the sex trafficking that goes on in the shadow parts of the government that they don't, that they don't really want us to know about. It ain't just Jeffrey Epstein. I think that Jeffrey Epstein is just the face. But the real person behind all of this stuff, it would probably make a lot of people distraught. Like what they said about Mother Teresa. Allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, how she was connected to sex trafficking young girls. I'm going to say allegedly. We live in a very dark, dark world, and you have to be the light in this world, not necessarily for other people. If other people gravitate towards you, then that's wonderful. But you have to be the light and the anchor for yourself. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million subscribers or 700 or so like me. That's why I talk about the stuff that I talk about. Human nature is very, very dark. And I believe that is why we incarnate to try to understand it. I don't believe we incarnate to be abused and misused. I don't believe that. I believe those things come along because sometimes, because we are good natured people, we don't always see that certain individuals are not good for us. You know what I'm saying? Now, side note, me and my friend, my partner, I told y'all I was mad at him. He doesn't want to lose me. He don't want to lose me. He came in here after, we had some words through text. I didn't curse him out or anything, but I was disappointed because of something that, I needed him for. And I thought that he lied about not being there, but it turned out he was telling the truth why he couldn't be there. Okay? There were some things going on. So I had to accept that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like everybody else. I have ups and I have downs. He doesn't want to lose me because every time I talk about putting him out, he doesn't want to lose me. That's what it's all about. He does not want to lose me because he knows I'm the best thing that ever happened to him. I'm his best friend. And I'm not saying that out of egotism or being, egotistical or haughty. No, I'm telling you that because it's the truth. I feed him, I cook for him, I'm kind to him, and it is not wrong for me or for you to expect those things in return. And that is what I said to him. We had a miscommunication that made me want to put his motherfucking ass out. And that happens often. Nothing is perfect. You know what I'm saying? So just take me as an example. I'm putting my own business out there. Any spiritualist or occultist that cannot be honest with you about who they are, then you got to give them the side eye because I want people to know I'm human like you. But we live in a world with inhuman people who want you to believe, oh, I'm above you, everything is perfect in my life. Ha 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 ha. I'm above you. I got this and I got that. Like a lot of them jail dudes under those behavioral modification effect contracts. They're under contract. Hollywood and the music industry and the sports industry and all of that, they're not the only ones who put people under contracts. A lot of these niggas that come out of jail, they're under contract. That is how they get some of the things that they get. And they use our tax dollars to fund this. But you all, I'm not talking about the people that watch me per se, but you all are worried about Snap. You're worried about people buying ice cream and cake with Snap. So what? The fuck difference does it make? I would rather somebody be doing that than them letting some person out of jail who committed a heinous crime like killing a woman and her unborn child, and letting that person gain or get a leg up where they can get a house in your neighborhood around your children. And come to find out, this motherfucker, he's still getting into trouble with women. He was seeing a family friend of ours playing her against another woman, cheating and two-timing. And then when this family friend woke up, this motherfucker started setting up accounts in her name to make it look like she was stalking him, when in reality, he was stalking her and harassing her. Had to get my family involved, and they had to tell her, leave him alone because, he did, kill a woman and her unborn child. And I even told her, I said, honey, run as far as you can away from him. She said, oh, I am. I ain't fooling with him no more. I said, don't. I said, don't. The little bit of interaction that I had with him at my family cookout this past summer, I don't care for him. I don't care for him. I liked his father. His father's dead, but I don't care for him. There are some things and there are some people that I just don't want to be around. And I don't want to be around that. I don't want to be around that. And call me bougie, call me whatever, but I don't want to be around no person that unalived an unborn child and the woman that was going to give birth to the child. I don't want to be around that. It's called morals and values. But you motherfuckers are worried about some fucking SNAP benefits being used for ice cream and cake. And you got this shit going on right up under your nose. Yeah, I know why Muriel Bowser is well, she's not stepping down, but she's not seeking re-election after her term ends next year. Yeah, I know why she's not seeking re-election. Because she knows the shit is getting ready to hit the fan. All of this shit is connected. But they're letting these guys out of prison, these guys who commit heinous crimes, through these behavioral modification programs, and they are unleashing them into the community. And they are harming women and children. And they're using tax dollars to do it. And then if anyone says anything about it, they threaten you, they bully you, they harass you, they stalk you. When you say, hey, 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 that's unacceptable in the community. It's called having morals and values, something that they don't have. And there was a lack of morality and values all throughout the 80s and the 90s. The 80s, they established their wealth. In the 90s, they were bloodthirsty. And see, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of you black, I'm talking to some of you straight black men that are out there in the street, because I know all of y'all are not bad people. Sometimes circumstances are just circumstances. But you better be careful because a lot of these dudes who are in those behavioral modification contracts or under those contracts, when they go in jail, and I'm sure you all know this, they end up snitching on you and giving the police ammunition to set you up, even though they ain't shit. Or because they're jealous and they ain't shit ass motherfucking niggas, they will have other criminals come after you and they will set you up from prison. Because I truly believe that's what happened to my uncle, who was out there in the street too. But he was making money. That's the uncle that I told you that had a rapport, a small rapport with Donald Trump, a small one. They will be in prison, setting you up in prison. And maybe that's also part of their behavioral modification contract. Because, see, my uncle, even though he was selling drugs and doing whatever he was doing, he had a heart, though. He had a heart. And they don't want that. They don't want people like that. Now, my uncle wasn't no saint, but I can tell you one thing, he ain't never killed no woman and no unborn child. He never did no shit like that. And that was my favorite uncle that had passed away. That was my favorite uncle. He didn't pass, he was murdered in 1993. He was murdered. Some niggas set him up in his own shop and store because my uncle owned businesses and he was very successful in what he did. And that was my favorite uncle. I'm almost getting tears thinking about it now. So it's a whole lot of shit that's going on. A whole lot of stuff. And people are under people, how can I put it? People are under siege. DC is under siege again because of the failed leadership of not only Muriel Bowser, but the failed leadership of the Trump administration. And this is not hatred. This is concern. Kash Patel is not qualified to be the director of the FBI. The only thing that qualified him was the fact that he was a Trump loyalist. And it's really sad because I do believe that Donald Trump, if he was in a better state of mind and if he would just listen, I do believe he could really bring good things to this country. But instead of him doing that, not only is he disappointing his base, because MAGA ain't magging it like it used to, but instead of him surrounding himself with people who know what they're doing, he is surrounding himself with yes people. And those yes people are going to tear him down too. See, he needs an advisor like me. He needs an advisor like me, a spiritual advisor that can talk to him. See, I'm a Virgo, he's a Gemini. I can get through to Geminis. Virgos can match because we're both under the rule of Mercury. So I can match their their wit and that smart mouth. See, I know how to deal with Geminis. I've dealt with them all my life. You know, my friend Christopher, he was a Gemini. He and I got along just fine. He needs a Virgo on that team, not that Carolyn Levitt, because she's his yes person. And she's a Virgo. And her birthday is around the same time as mine. Matter of fact, it's the same damn day, August 24th. But he needs a Virgo as his counsel, spiritual counsel, and public image counsel. And I would sit down and say to him, Mr. President, I respect you and I respect the office of the presidency, but you have people around you that are not going to help you accomplish the things that you want to in a conducive manner. You cannot say to reporters and the press, quiet piggy. You cannot attack people's personal appearances and stuff like that. See, these are the things that Susie Wiles should be saying to him. These are the things that his counsels should be saying to him that are around him. That you are destroying your presidency, sir. But you don't say this publicly. You have to say this in a way and in close proximity. When you're dealing with a werewolf or a lion, sometimes you got to play dead. Sometimes you got to play dead. You have to know how to deal with these types of people. But he has surrounded himself with a bunch of yes people. The Taurus is not going to step out of line. Susie Wiles is a Taurus. She ain't going to step out of line. A Taurus ain't going to fuck up their coin for morality. See, a Virgo, we're more rebellious in some ways, especially August Virgos like me. And I'm on the cusp of Leo. So my Leo would appeal to him more. JD Vance is a Leo. Why doesn't he tell the president, listen, sir, you're going to have to cut back on the rhetoric and the disrespect of women? And that's what I don't understand. How is this not being, well, how can I put it? Why is this not an issue? How this man sits up and disrespects and talks about women. No man should speak to a woman like that for no reason, especially when she's just doing her job. Telling that woman to quiet piggy, you don't talk to women like that, especially when there's no cause, there's no justifiable cause. That woman was doing her job. Has anyone sat down with him and told him, Mr. President, you can't talk to women like that in our culture? That is an abuse of power. And we are seeing it trickle down into everyday life. No wonder people are so crazy because there's crazy at the top and the middle. You can't talk to people like that. Insulting people about their weight, insulting women about their weight, their bodies, and you're a man. You should not be talking to people like that. She didn't insult him. She asked him questions. And he didn't like the questions she was asking. But you all are worried about Snap. Well, how about this? Everyone has snapped. You have them funding behavioral modification programs for prisoners to come out of prison after these people have committed heinous, horrible crimes. They're giving them grants. They're giving them money to start their own businesses. They are giving them a leg up to move into your neighborhoods. And this is all going on right around, right up under your nose. Some of these men are even pedophiles. But, I'm not supposed to say that. Yeah, some of them are pedophiles too. They put them in behavioral modification programs too, where they cross their hearts and hope to die and promise never to never bother another child. And sometimes they'll even give them plastic surgery to change their identity. Huh. I know I'm just crazy. I know. No, no. Because a lot of people are saying that's really what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein. That Jeffrey Epstein didn't commit no suicide. They gave him a behavioral modification effect. They put him in a behavioral modification program. They put him in a high level one, though, where they faked his death and allegedly made him get plastic surgery. And now he has a whole new identity, allegedly. For all we know, he could be J.D. Vance. Do you think it's a coincidence that hit the talk about the Epstein files is coming back up? No, it's not a coincidence. It's something behind that. While they were distracting everybody with that 3 Atlas, what they were calling an alien spaceship, but then it turned out to be a comet, talking about that it was going to arrive on Earth today. They had everybody looking up in the sky. They had you all distracted up in the air about that 3 Atlas shit, while down here on Earth, while down here on Earth, they have all of these motherfuckers in these behavioral modification programs in the prison system, and they're letting them out. They're letting them out. They're putting them in your neighborhoods. They're giving them money and grants to rebuild their lives after they've committed heinous crimes. Would you want to live near someone like that? I remember, prime example, and this person is still living there, the building that I used to live in. There was a guy that lived in the building. He did 30 years in prison. And you have to pay attention to the number, the number system. He did 30 years in prison, which breaks down to the number 3. He did 30 years in prison for killing 6 people, but they only got him for 3 bodies. They put him under a behavioral modification contract. They put him under a behavioral modification contract, and he got into some trouble in our building. And this man is an older guy in his 60s. He got into some type of altercation with the manager and another tenant, and they sent him away for a minute. I think they sent him to a psychiatric hospital. And they told him that if he did not shape up, he was going to go back to Texas because he was from Texas, and he was going to do the rest of his time. Behavioral modification contract. They invest a lot in these criminals that commit heinous crimes. They want to rehabilitate them at our expense. But nobody talks about that. And then when these niggas get out of jail, they are violent, they harass people, they degrade people, they judge people, they dehumanize people, they humiliate people, they harm children. They try to tell you that you ain't shit, a lot of these men. But dude, you running around killing people. You killing women and children. And if you killed another man, that's another story. If you killing somebody that, if it's some street related shit, that's one thing. But to kill a woman and her unborn child, That ain't no fucking gangster shit. That's some bitch made motherfucking shit. That's what bitches do. And when I say bitches, I'm not talking about females. I'm talking about weak ass motherfucking men. And these are the types of people that they put in social media. These are the types of people. The men that you see, a lot of these black men that are in social media that have these large followings, they're part of they are part, if they've been in that penal system, they are part of that behavioral modification project. Yeah, we'll just put you on YouTube. Make sure you get a lot of subscribers. You tell them, for example, Omar Johnson. I could see him being part of that project. Not saying that he is, but I could see him being part of that. Yeah, get on YouTube and tell them they have to be Pan African. Condemn them if they're gay, because you know gay people have a certain amount of consciousness and they have a certain amount of influence and they have a certain amount of consciousness. You know, the real gay people, not the ones part of the LGBT cult of Hollywood and social media. No, but the real gay people are spiritual people. They're connected to spirit. We want you to degrade them. We want you to make them feel like they're less than, so they won't be able to tap into their spirituality, so we can continue to feed off of them. Make sure you castigate all of the black women. Make them feel like they are less than. And the good black men, make sure you kill all of them off. Maybe not physically, but metaphorically. And we're going to tell them that we want you, and we're going to put on you, we're going to mount on you that your brutality and your abuse of words, your abuse of power, we're going to let them know or make them think that that is a form of masculinity and power and true power. We're going to convince them and subconsciously put spell work on them to convince them that abuse is masculinity and abuse is power. Behavioral modification effect. Anyway, this is the occult view, and I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you eat good, hope you laugh, enjoy, and do what it is that you do. Thank you.